Well, Defence Minister Richard Marles is still trying to defend his $3 million spend on taxpayer-funded RAAF flights, as revealed by News.com's Samantha Maiden.
Can the Minister confirm whether he has taken his golf clubs with him on any Defence VIP special purpose aircraft flights, and if so, on how many flights?
It is, Mr Speaker, just a little revealing of what hurts them the most about the fact that they are now in opposition. The special purpose aircraft are an important capability which facilitates government travel. We use it appropriately. Those opposite know it. Their attempt to politicise it is pathetic, but worse, it reeks of hypocrisy.
Samantha Maiden has revealed that the Deputy Prime Minister has run up a VIP flight bill of $3.6 million, including a quick trip to see the Matildas World Cup semi-final. That flight alone reportedly carries an estimated cost of around $16,000, all billed to the taxpayer. But the government refuses to publish the full details of their flight spending. For the first time, these details are not transparent. Let's bring in tonight's panel. Daily Telegraph columnist Joe Hildebrand and commentator Jason Morrison. Great to see you both.
Great to be here.
Joe.
Yes.
This is a shocking look for the government that it campaigned on transparency, and for the first time there's no access to details about how many flights were taken, where they went, who were the passengers on the flights and how much they cost.
Yeah, obviously sunlight is the best disinfectant, and what they should be doing is just pulling the rug back and letting people see where they were. If they were all taken appropriately, fine. Let's see it. How much security or how much national security was at risk for the Matildas semi-final? I'm not entirely sure, but it was a moment of great national importance, and I'm sure they could spin it one way or the other. But no, it's not a great look, and I think in many ways it's a lesson to Labor. One of the things I hate Labor in opposition is they get very holier than thou, and they actually forget that when they're in government, they do a hell of a lot of the same things that the coalition or any government of any stripe does. And so when they do get a bit too holier than thou, a bit too tealy, shall we say, in opposition, it can often come back to bite them on the bum.
I mean, that's a good point. There was the Bronwyn Bishop helicopter chopper scandal.
Choppergate.
Yep. There was Susan Ley and her trip to the Gold Coast, where she then went and bought an apartment. Obviously, she's come back as deputy leader.
Got it on the ground floor of the market, though, so, you know. Well.
but you know, Jason Morrison, Joe's point is right. The government hounded the opposition over travel logs, and now it's effectively hiding its own travel logs.
Yeah, there's two issues. I mean, one is them using the planes, which in itself is obscene, and they all do it. And then there's the secrecy of it. You know, we're sort of pretending Al-Qaeda would jump on the logs 3 months' time looking for patterns to say, right, that's where we'll get him. But the use of the planes is a farce, and this went on all through the coalition and the previous Labor government and the one before that. It just is the game. They all pretend there's an event that's related to their public duties in Sydney on the night of the Matildas event or on the day after. It had to be there. And this has gone on forever. And, you know, I remember being at the airport one time and seeing Maurice Payne boarding a commercial flight, and she was flying to what I knew at the time to be a very important event, and I was a bit in disbelief. What, you're going to a major diplomatic event for Australia,
slumming it in business class,
Exactly.
You're not even in the chairman's lounge. But yeah, she was on that flight, and I thought that is odd. Like, there are times when you want to put the foreign minister on a private flight to get the foreign minister there, so there's absolutely no chance that papers or bags can be fossing through by anyone. But no, she's on the standard flight. And this bloke is catching up with mates at a footy game and thinks that, even this morning on Carl's show, he was pretending.
The allegation is that he went from a party function, the Labor's National Conference, to see the Matildas and back. Joe, I mean, these are genuine questions.
Bishop was choppering to a party function as well.
But
she paid for it.
Yeah, she paid it back, that's right.
I mean,
paid for it.
She paid for it in terms of her career.
Yeah, that's right. And again, you know, I think that's almost a sort of political love story gone awry, because, of course, Abbott backed her in for about 3 weeks, I think, afterwards, and then eventually couldn't do it anymore, and his political godmother...
So what's your prediction with this, with Richard Marles? How long the Prime Minister will back in?
I think you get to a point in a scandal where you've already lost as much skin as you're going to lose. You're not going to regain your political capital, so you might as well just tough it out. And
well, you know what? From a journalist who's been on the other end of scandals, I mean, I broke the Barnaby Joy story. It was 2 weeks before he resigned. It just depends what's going to come out next. And I know Samantha Maiden and I know she is relentless with the story, so we'll get. We have to see what will still come out.
He's the politician that ordered the flights. That's what he is now. It doesn't matter what else he achieves. He's the politician who ordered the flights, and he'd know it too. So release the bloody papers and let everyone see what it was actually about, and so we can see if it was a rort, and if it was, own it. Yeah. And pay it back.
All right, now let's turn to the Voice referendum. Two big things that have happened. Firstly, John Farnham has given his song, not quite for the first time, but to the Voice campaign.
Have you got it there? Could we play it one more?
We played it again for the 8th time tonight. Right. And also, Peter Dutton has suggested that he might hold a referendum just on recognition in the Constitution alone, should he become Prime Minister. Joe, what's your view on both of this?
Look, I mean, obviously, the Voice campaign, having You're the Voice as its campaign song, was always going to happen if it was possible. I have no doubt it's something, obviously, I suggested to them. I'm sure I was the last person to suggest everyone else. I thought Mitch Tambo's version should have been used.
So we can blame you for having to hear it 1,000 times, Joe.
I mean, it's a no-brainer, obviously. Yeah. There'll also be a product endorsement with the Voice singing reality TV show as well coming up. I don't know. So I think that's fine. I think the hate that Farnsey is getting on his social media pages is disgraceful, and I know that no campaigners are no stranger to getting hate posts against them. I think on both sides it's absolutely disgraceful and disgusting, and leave Farnsey alone. Again, I don't want to have a crack at Peter Dutton because he's a very nice man. I've always said that, but this idea that you would just sort of have a thought bubble in an interview with Andrew Clennell on Sky and say, oh, yeah, we'll have another referendum. I mean, the idea that it would just sort of be blurted out in the middle of an interview without any kind of formal announcement with an idea of what kind of infrastructure would be around it, again, what the wording would be. He can't even get agreement from his own coalition colleagues as to what his version of the Voice would be, even if he did just legislate it. And again, anyone who remembers the Republican referendum in '99 knows that this is the exact same pup that the direct electionists tried to sell to the Australian people. They said, don't vote for this model, and if you knock this model back, they'll have to come back with the other model that we want. And guess what? That was 25 years ago, a quarter of a century ago, and it hasn't been anywhere since. So,
but on the flip side, and I take your points, but on the flip side, isn't it a recognition that the majority of Australians would support Indigenous recognition in the Constitution, but they don't support the Voice advisory model?
But that means they don't support the recognition that Indigenous people have asked for, which defies the whole point.
It may well be, and you might well be onto the absolute centre core of where the popularity would be on the issue. However, this is indicative to me that the same twits that were advising the Morrison government in its dying days are still in the ears of the senior Liberal Party officials that are coming up with this. Dutton is leading in this thing. He is on what will be the right side of history on this. He's decided and backed that a lot of Australians don't think this is the right thing to do. And then just as he's kind of got something right, out's come this. To me, it just is indicative of the Liberal Party doesn't know what it is anymore. And it should actually start to listen to the base and listen to its supporters who are overwhelmingly opposed to this. If you don't believe the polls, go and wander the streets. And I feel sorry for Peter Garrett and his mates for all those years for singing all those songs about Aboriginal welfare and whatever else, and they didn't even get a look in.
My bet is that after 2 or 3 weeks, they're going to have to change the campaign song because people aren't going to want to hear it anymore. And it is a great song.
It's a fantastic
song.
Of course,
but like, you know, I'm already tired of it and we're day 2.